all AI models ultimately have to have integration with real-time search.
Benioff off of Salesforce and Microsoft are like doing a little shade.
I don't think it'll probably be released until like 2025.
Everything that you do on a daily basis is all in your ChatGPT interface. Do you need to go to other places?
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Today is November 1st, 2024, and you're listening and watching the Daily AI Show live. And today, since it's our every other Friday show, what we like to do is take a quick break, look back over our last 9 shows, that means 2 weeks worth of shows, and talk about some of the things that have either come out in the news, things that have changed since we talked about them on the show. A lot of times we just literally kind of end the conversation because it's running long and there's more to say, and it just didn't make the conversation. Oh, that's right, I wanted to say that thing or whatever. And this week, or this week specifically, has been pretty crazy. So let me tell you who we have with us as of right now. We have Beth, Jyunmi, Andy, and I'm Brian. I don't know why I struggle with that. And we have Karl. I thought I heard the bloop. Somebody was coming in, so Karl's here as well. Welcome, Karl. So we got 5 of us here, which means we have plenty of AI enthusiasts to have a conversation and talk about all the interesting things that are coming out. And if you guys are cool with it, I do have one to maybe jump off with, and this is thanks to Karl sharing this in Slack yesterday. So we could talk about some of the big announcements that have come out from OpenAI and such, one of them being Search GPT. But before we get into talking about that, and is it a Perplexity killer, and we can kind of have some conversations, I thought this was at least fair because what was it? Last Monday to the Monday before, we talked about Sam Altman's sort of like concerns, right? About, are we ready? Are we evolving? Will we evolve as a society fast enough? That was one of our shows. And I thought, okay, this is sort of I was about to say adjacent to that conversation. But Karl, you had shared that, I guess it was yesterday, that he did a Sam as well as 2 other people from OpenAI. It was the CPO, Kevin something, and then there's also head of engineering or something on there as well. And they did a Reddit Ask Me Anything, and it was really insightful. I mean, I feel like we got more information about future projects, how they're thinking about advancing. If you're brand new out of college, like there was questions there about like, where should I focus? And they're like, there's some really good answers there. So I thought it'd be fun, without taking up the whole show, to just talk about some of the insightful things we learned from Sam himself, but also 2 or 3 other people from OpenAI, just from this Reddit Ask Me Anything. And I know, Karl, you had screen shared a few just to share us with us. Do you want to maybe start with some of the ones you screen? Like, you don't have to bring them up on screen, but the ones you had shared with us in Slack.
Yeah, for sure. I think there was always questions about GPT-5 and O1, but I think the one that I really found kind of interesting was the one by where he says, is AGI, the question was, is AGI achievable with known hardware, or will it take something entirely different? And he said, we believe it's achievable with current hardware.
Yeah.
And I think everybody kind of jumped AGI next week or whatever that is. I always thought that there would need to be something, and maybe this, I don't know what you all think, but Jan LeCun has always said, hey, none of this stuff is smarter than your cat, right? Because you need I agree, like you need all these inputs, right? Vision, voice, you can hear things. Essentially, our 5 senses go into understanding, and then giving us that intelligence around the world, not just what we hear, what we see, but everything in context. So that is to me a really bold statement that, what are these? Can the current hardware replicate those input of senses outside of touch? But even touch, I'm not sure. I don't know what that would even look like, right? But I think from a vision, voice, and everything surrounding it, like what does that mean? And I want to couple this with, he actually was talking about agents and what his belief on that was. So it very parallel to his Deb Day Ask Me Anything in London, which is a couple of days ago too. So that was an interesting, because he had about someone recorded 10 minutes of him speaking about what he thought of agents. And then if you read what's here and then connect to what he was saying there are some times when, when these founders are saying something, they're saying something of what they're currently working on that will eventually come whenever it was. And it's always done with blog posts, but now you can start hearing it with what. Now I want, maybe for Search GPT, I'm moving all around here, but it's coming out fast.
I was about to say that. I was like, Karl, where are you?
In my brain, because
it was Karl.
To take this to, I remember Sam Altman in a interview saying, oh, it'd be really cool is if you could search something with AI, or I would say 6, 7, 8 months ago. And I remember he was saying that, and we have Search GPT. So to bring it all back, when these things come out, it's not just, hey, we're here doing it to like raise money or anything. It's like, I think he's previewing what he thinks is coming. And so I thought that what is achievable with current hardware, I really think it believes that. And everything else related to this is like a preview of what potentially that's coming, in 2025, 2026.
Yeah.
It makes me think of Fei Li's spatial intelligence show that we did. And I wasn't in the last 9, but just what she is pioneering with her team and what they've been doing towards spatial intelligence, like that's what this makes me think of. Like, is it achievable with current hardware? I think it depends on the really smart people and engineers who are working with the current hardware, and obviously more compute power and things like that. Go ahead, Beth. Sorry.
So this is true of Sam in particular. Like, Sam has a pattern of starting to do interviews where he mentions a little something, and like he doesn't speculate in it sounds like he's speculating, but he's not, right? He's like, well, maybe what would it be like if he's seen it, or he's seen a clear path to get there. So this is critical, I think, in that. And it may just be because, like, what Jan's saying is that large language models will not get there, but large language models combined with image generation models or video generation models, which need a view of the world view, like a sense of how physics work and movement works, may be enough. And we know that OpenAI, though they keep it, I don't know, not as good or very expensive. Pick a card, right? But they do have Sora. They have worked on it. They do have Dolly.
They
right?
talk about Sora, by the way. Will Sora take video inputs? And the answer was yes. That was one of the things that came up on the Reddit. I want to add one to that. Sorry if that's loud. I want to add, you couldn't hear it. Good. Fantastic. Mics are working. Yay, one for the Shure mic. I want to add one to what you just said, Beth, because you said LLMs and image models. And I want to add to that the ability of extreme low latency with image. And what I mean by this is right now, within the last, 2 weeks, we also had Claude come out with their computer use, not the most innovative, but hey, they didn't call it an agent, I don't think. So yeah, they call the computer use. So anyway, my point to that is that works on a very rudimentary type system. It's not very complicated when you think about it. It takes a picture of your screen and it uses language models to predict the next move, right? This is kind of like the way games basically work or whatever. Well, if you can speed that up, not indefinitely or infinitely, but if you can speed that up 100x and do it in a way where the models are able to take, I don't know, Jyunmi, half of a movie, so not 24 frames per second, but 12 frames per second, and instantly take, learn, and delete those images. So you're not just building up this massive amount of, so the latency is so crazy because you have now thousands of images over the course of 3 minutes worth of it trying to move your mouse around. But I don't see any reason why they won't get there. Why it won't essentially feel like it's doing live video, because it's taking so many frames per second of your mouse moving around or taking computer control. and doing it in such a way that latency comes way down. And back to what you're saying, Beth, LLMs plus image equals essentially video, right? And this ability now for a language model, a Claude or whatever, we've talked about different hypersonic things that have already done this, and it will easily be able to go across platform and do actual agentic workflows, because it's going to have no problem taking over your computer. It'll have no problem moving around the desktop as a human would and opening up things, taking snapshots, whatever. It'll take its own snapshots of other screens in order to figure out what the next best move is, and it'll always be about 4 or 5 moves ahead of you in like chess. So I don't know. I see this coming. I know we got a little bit back away from the Reddit. Can we take just, I don't want to exclude anybody else, but I don't know if anybody else had an opportunity to read through them. There are some nuggets in there. Can we just kind of maybe, unfortunately, I don't have them all on one screen, but I think there are some fun nuggets in here to kind of bring up from the Reddit. Is everybody cool with that? Or, because I know there's other topics too.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So is the plan to continue the release of O series models and from now on improve on the regular models? Example, 3, 4, 5 GPTs. Both or a combination of those? That was the whole question. Both. And at some point, I expect them to converge. We've heard this before, that it's not just like we have DALL-E and we had Code Interpreter and we had other pieces, and then all of a sudden they all come into ChatGPT. Search GPT would be the exact same thing. It was separate for a while and went through some whatever red teaming and some beta people. I wasn't part of that. I didn't have access to it early. And then plop, it's right there inside of ChatGPT, and it's synonymous with using the tool. It doesn't matter. It'll use it. You can isolate and use it. We can talk more about that. So that was pretty cool. Somebody asked about ChatGPT and therapy, and they said they think there's some great use cases out there, but obviously it's not a therapy tool. There's a few more in here. Give me 1 second. What are some of the best ChatGPT use cases you've seen in the wild so far? This was from Sam. There are a lot of great ones, but the stories of people figuring out the cause of a debilitating disease and then getting fully cured are really awesome to hear. Also a lot, but the ability to be a really good software engineer feels deeply underappreciated even still. More generally, the ability to help scientists discover new knowledge even faster will be so great. So I love hearing things like that. When will you release the camera mode for ChatGPT? Working on it. Don't have a release date for that yet. Seriously though, what did Ilya say?
So that
favorite ones.
That camera mode is significant, right?
Yeah.
Because that was the piece that they announced, right? That's advanced voice camera mode, vision mode that they demoed when they announced advanced voice,
right?
Way back there. And now they've now like rolled it out to everybody, but also this like piece of information that is like, hey, yeah, no, that piece isn't coming. Same with Sora, right? So like they're still doing, like, even in this AMA, they're still doing the like, oh yeah, like we did tell everybody we had it, we do, but we can't tell you when you're going to get it.
Same thing with Sora, right? They're like, and I'll find it in here because I don't want to just read. But I mean, the answer on Sora was video inputting. But then another one I read said, look, we want to get it right. We have to get this right. We have to figure out impersonations, things like that were mentioned. And that's it. That's the answer. Is it's being delayed because we're trying to get it right. So, I mean, everybody can take it. The question on seriously, though, what did Ilya see? Sam said, the transcendent future was his answer. And he said, Ilya is an incredible visionary and sees the future more clearly than almost anyone else. His early ideas, excitement, and vision were critical to so much of what we have done. For example, he was one of the key initial explorers and champions for some of the ideas that eventually became O1. The field is very lucky to have him. So I thought that was cool that he even answered that, because that's kind of a fun one out there. They talked about DALL-E 3. When will you guys, update it? It's kind of outdated. Sam said the next update will be worth the wait, but we don't have a release plan yet. Will we see a voice loosen restrictions and musical capabilities? Kevin, the CPO, said working on it. I want to hear ChatGPT sing too, as well, meaning some ideas there. Let me see if there's any more real quick on here, and then we'll move off of this. Will ChatGPT eventually be able to perform tasks on its own? And then they said message you first. And in my honest opinion, this is going to be a big theme of 2025. So, listen, I think there's a lot of cool things that are in this chat. People can go to Reddit and go dig through it. It's pretty easy to find the stuff from Sam. I highly recommend it because there's a lot of cool things in there. And I do think this does pull back to his conversation. And Beth, you were talking about Sam and like he has a pattern. Anybody that's watching Sam Altman, watch the video that like Karl shared. Sam is like the definition of looking up to the left. If you see Sam do a very strong up to the left and then think about what it is, I would always say pay attention to whatever he says after that. Like just watch the video, and if he says up to the left and you see him sort of squint his eyes, that's Sam thinking into the future. I swear to God, every time you watch it, you can be like, okay, hold on a second. What is he talking about? Because it's him probably thinking about what he can say and also like how he sees things going. And I always find whatever those future comments to be really, really valuable. Okay, out of the last 9 shows, who else wants to pick up on one of the other topics?
The one last thing I want to pick up on, I was disappointed. I was waiting for vision, right? So you have advanced voice, and in May they showed the vision aspect. So I think they're talking about they're working on it. I don't think it'll probably be released until like 2025. And they said they only had so much compute. So they have to really be focused on what they allocate towards, right? So that's very interesting. And I think somebody mentioned it this year, like that's why they want to try to go with Broadcom, get more, like create their own chips, because it's very, very, I guess like with all the things they're working on, there's only so much focus. And then the focus on O1 is interesting because that's everything that they want to do. So if they want to combine that with GPT, the GPT series, because right now they're separate. So yeah, it's very interesting what they want to focus on. And O1 keeps coming up as the thing that they want to focus on the most.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, there's a lot of nuggets in there. So people should go do it. Context window came up a lot too, by the way. Everybody who asked about context window, it's coming. We're going to expand it. It's going to be longer. It's going to be great. It's going to remember more, right? That comes up. That theme comes up a lot. I didn't pull it up on the thing like you normally do on our every other Friday, but we did dive deep into not only AI agent showdown. We talked about, AGI risks. We talked about privacy risks. We talked about Perplexity's new tools and what they have going on, as well as yesterday we were talking about AI avatars playing, being hosts on Polish radio stations and stuff. So there's a lot of different topics we went over, as well as I wasn't on this show, but the Dario Modi write about AI. So that one was on there as well. What do you guys think about the Search GPT as opposed to, have you played with it since yesterday if you didn't have it? And do you feel like it is a direct competitor to Perplexity? Because, with Perplexity's new tools with spaces and such, is it?
I think so.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, the number one thing, I think you pointed out earlier, it's now integrated in the normal chat window.
Yeah.
That was huge for me because I was able to get access to Search GPT early, and it worked perfectly fine, but it was one more step removed.
So we're in a different URL for that because I don't know how it worked.
Yeah. So it was a feature that I would have to navigate to, then use it in its own interface,
Gotcha.
and then go back to ChatGPT and things like that. So, and I understand it's in beta. They want to segment it. Makes perfect sense. But for adoption into my daily routine to replace maybe Google search and those other kinds of things, having that integration right into chat is huge for me. From my experience of using it since I got access, it does pretty much everything that I want, and I do like the responsiveness and how things are displayed and things like that. Now, how much they're going to change that interface and that user experience, I don't know. I like the fact that I don't have all of this extra stuff that's always around my content that I'm looking for, the links or those kinds of things. So we'll see how that goes in. Now, for the question about the Perplexity, I don't think it's quite there yet. But since they decided to integrate it with chat, we'll see. I think the most important part of this move is that it's one step closer to having that unified AI layer, right? If all of the components, Canvas, search, everything that you do on a daily basis is all in your ChatGPT interface, do you need to go to other places? And I think that's the question that they're really, creating. Like, oh, you don't need to leave.
Yeah,
just
operating
our
system,
platform,
full operating system, right?
Yeah.
They want you to stay there for sure. I mean, I think they've even said as much that is sort of the goal. Look, Perplexity. We talked about. In fact, I taught a course on Perplexity and everything Wednesday, not as part of the Daily AI show, but through Scaled. I've been doing this 6-week course. The first 2 weeks, we talked all about ChatGPT. I spent that first week just talking about all the things ChatGPT could do. Of course, I didn't have access to this at the time, but just goes to show. Oh, and the search function, not search web, but search your past feed search function.
Finally, let's just have a moment for that freaking God, right?
Yeah. I think you said it too, Beth. Not an easy, that's a legit hard thing that they did. And we're just like, oh, great, you can search your past experience. But that is a big update, and it kind of got swept up in all the other stuff. But anyway, what I was going to say is I did a whole thing on Perplexity. My thing, Jimmy, is I'm with you. Perplexity does seem to be, if you just look at them and you go, oh, can they both accurately now pull in real-time news data, stock tickers, that kind of really up-to-date sports story, whatever stuff on both of them. Well, we would have said probably before yesterday with the big launch that Perplexity was probably better at doing that. It was going to pull in that stuff. And now Search GPT, be whatever you want to call it, can do that. But they are pretty different still, I think. And while you can still upload files and Perplexity has it, but ChatGPT already had it, and there was a bit of a RAG system and stuff, I do think Perplexity is still going towards that enterprise side of the house where they're going to build for business. And it is still going to be a one-stop shop, but you're going to really build some really cool, we'll have to see, really cool file stores and things like that. I would love to see Perplexity go into more on the data governance and one source of truth type stuff. I think they could really do some big plays there. Who knows if they will. And it's a different, it's just, I don't know, it's a prettier interface. I don't know how else to say it. I would prefer being in Perplexity and how they have things laid out than I would be in ChatGPT. But that's a personal.
Oh,
but that's also...
I completely agree. Oh, I was just going to say, I agree with you at that point. At this point, Search GPT isn't really, in my eyes, not really the competitor at this point. I think just like we've seen from OpenAI, we're going to see rollout of more and more things. And we'll see in 6 months. We'll see in 6 months what that's going to be. What I really hope from Perplexity is I want them to take the early Netflix route. One of the reasons that Netflix was so became so popular and so is because they became so pervasive. They were installed on every piece of hardware that existed. Right, you could get it through anything: TVs, DVD, DVRs, the whole nine. Right, so that's the kind of thing I want to see from Perplexity. If you can make it so that I don't just have to go to your site to do this thing and then go somewhere else, that's great. So what we've seen this is adding as search engines on certain browsers and things like that. If you can get on the ground level of where people are, the touch point they are with the internet or with the hardware, I think that's going to be huge for them in terms of adoption and just daily use.
It's a good call out. I would love to see Perplexity on Apple TV, which I use every single day in my house. I don't know exactly what that looks like, but in my mind, if I did a search on Perplexity on the Apple TV app and it pulled up curated pieces of YouTube videos and I could watch them in row, it kind of curated the 10 total minutes, but I'm watching 30 seconds of this and 30 seconds of that to complete a total story. I don't see why I wouldn't use that. I'd be really curious to have an idea beyond my TV where I could watch on a big screen, because I don't want to type, right? I don't want to do the old school web TV thing where you had to type and blah, blah, blah. But if I can just do a voice search like you already can in Perplexity, and it brings back really information, it says, do you want to see a curated video, a visual of this? that we've put together on this topic, 100%. I think you have a great idea there, Jimmy. 100%. I'd love to see that.
I do want to, I guess we can use that as a segue because I really like the Perplexity desktop app. We can talk about all the other desktop apps. I really like their voice integration there. It just, because okay, so you have the Claude app on your desktop. I have the Perplexity app on the desktop, and I have the OpenAI, the ChatGPT app. I just find the Perplexity one from a voice perspective, even though Claude did put the voice component to it, right now, it's easy, and just because it has a search aspect too. I don't know if the new ChatGPT search has the voice aspect to it. And I know Claude doesn't have online search, but if I want to do something really quick, Perplexity is so easy to use.
The ChatGPT search will get voice, but it's coming. It's soon probably, but it's on their roadmap. I wanted to comment on why all AI models ultimately have to have integration with real-time search. And that is that's proven by something that OpenAI released, which is a simple but challenging open source benchmark called Simple QA that measures factual accuracy of large language models without access to the internet. And what they discover using this benchmark is that GPT-01, their best model, scores only 42.7%. And Claude 3.5, which is one of the best performing models out there, gets only 28.9%. And this is without internet access. So what that's showing you is that in terms of being able to be an answer machine like Perplexity is, you can't get factual answers. You can't use the AI's reasoning model with its pre-training as a standalone source of knowledge. You've got to have access to the factual grounding. So it's not insignificant that on the very same day that Search GPT is being made widely available, Gemini has offered now grounding in Google search. So that feature is added now to Gemini application in Google's ecosphere. So that's just all this leading up to the idea that, and I think you alluded to this a little bit, Beth, is that, it's not enough to just have one model or one feature set. It's got to be the full operating system. And the full operating system, as described for the eventual multi-capable AI assistant, is going to be inclusive of real-time search.
Yeah. And one of the things that I think is important to point out in this comparison is that Perplexity is not also trying to be first to AGI, whatever that means, right? Perplexity is trying to be of service to users, right? And none of the other things that we're comparing right now that have desktop apps or this kind of thing are only in that game, right? And none of them are startups in like real startups.
But yeah, by the way, even Search GPT uses two different models. It's built on 4.0, but it uses output distillation, meaning summarization and context analysis from 0.1 preview. So it's calling on those different models, even if you don't realize it. But when you click the button now in ChatGPT for a web search, that's built off of two models with different capabilities.
They said in the Reddit too that Bing Chat, which could be sort of circular because you like, oh, that's built back off the models. But anyway, whatever, excuse me, whatever the architecture infrastructure behind Bing Chat is also, they mentioned, a part of that Search GPT solution. Also worth mentioning, because you kind of put it out, Beth, or maybe Andy, whoever just said it about Perplexity, is that they're language model agnostic. You're right, Andy, like Search GPT is using maybe multiple models, but they're always we'll assume they're always going to be OpenAI models. Perplexity has the advantage of you quickly, if you're in the paid version, in the pro version, of being able to say, I really like this answer, but I'd also really like to see what this looks like if Sonnet 3.5 answered it. And that is very powerful. It's not for everybody. Not everybody. Most people are going to take whatever they get the first time. That's not me. That's not how I operate. So I'm going to create spaces. I'm going to create pages, and I'm going to put side by sides. And like Beth and I used to teach, we're going to teach evaluation. And I'm going to look at two different models, and I'm going to say, which one do I think gives me a better answer? Especially if you are building out spaces that you're going to work with your company with, or you're in charge of building out, like, you could take a space and convert it to a page. And then let's say you're going to share that page internally. Absolutely. I'm going to run space. I'm going to create a space for evaluations. Then I'm going to run the individual chats exactly the same. And the only thing I'm going to change is the model output. And I'm going to run that 2 or 3 times over, keep it in a space. Then I'm going to determine whatever variety of that I like the best, convert that into a page and share that out with my team. Knowing that my team, as far as me being the person in charge, got the best version of that information. You cannot do that inside of Search GPT. You can't do that in OpenAI. You're just going to get whatever they do. It's very high quality. We will all agree, but I like options, So another like check mark to Perplexity. They are language model agnostic. They will always bring in whatever the next best thing is if they think it's valuable. So
there's another distinction, I think, that is going to happen when these AI models start to integrate search. And that is, unlike Google, when you do a Google search, you don't have access to information that's deep web or behind paywalls. And what this new Search GPT has is integration with 13 major publishers, including Reuters, AP, and that gives you kind of higher quality verified information sources as a result of that. So that's going to be a race as well. And I think it bodes well for all of the publishers out there, like Reuters or AP, or they'll be getting some revenue now as a result of their integrations with the search-enabled AI conversational access to information and answers.
And what did we just say the last week? One of them just sued Perplexity. I can't remember which one. One of them just sued Perplexity. Same thing. Yeah. They want a deal, right? I think, Jyunmi, you must have said this. I don't even know how many months ago. I think I'm attributing it rightly to you, but you were like, listen, they're suing them, but what do they really want out of the end of that? What's the end game? To get a deal, to get a publishing deal with it, to say, hey, you have to pay us for the right to use it. It's probably not about the lawsuit. It's about saying whatever. Now, Perplexity, I should say, has said they've done no such thing. We don't really need to get into that lawsuit, but I just wanted to bring it up in context because these major official sources of knowledge from journalisms that hopefully people respect, like Reuters and AP. I know I respect both of them a lot for being sort of like down the, they're going to give you the facts sort of thing. Rightfully so. They hopefully are getting, I hope they get a lot of money, frankly. I hope with the payment for it and however that works out, if people are using Search GPT and getting a great result and it's because of a Reuters or an AP result or whatever, I hope everybody gets paid. I think there's enough money to go around there, especially if people are saying that's why they feel like the OpenAI tool is so good. It's because of the journalistic integrity of some other source. Yeah. Credit where credit is due with that,
So
one thing I wanted to add. Oh, I just wanted to add one thing to what Andy said. It was and it was about that Search GPT was trained using synthetic data. So to me, that was important because everything the O1 outputs. So as we can see, the models going forward, when you talk about data, I'm not sure they need necessarily all of our data anymore. They can just create data and then train it on it. So I'll be curious to see as the models move forward and bigger models, it'd be more and more and more synthetic data. So just something to keep an eye on.
One thing really quick too, just on the Search GPT, in case anybody's about to leave that, I did do testing with this. As you can imagine, I've mentioned many times on the show, I have built many custom GPTs. Some of these are paid for custom GPTs that go in the sales realm out to people. I have many, many people who pay for custom GPTs I built. So as you can imagine, the reason I mentioned that is to say, ooh, Search GPT is now integrated. How did that impact my custom GPTs? Did all of my custom GPTs just get better? No, they did not. Here's the reason. As of right now, if you go into a custom GPT, one that's already been built, you, number one, do not see that same globe feature in the search bar. So in other words, I cannot be in a custom GPT and say, I want to opt to use it. Now, I did some research on this. OpenAI says, look, whether you can isolate to just search, but we're going to, based on your query, your prompt, we're going to determine the best use case of whether we use it or not. But you can isolate to it if you'd like. Just like you can isolate to, like, doing images and stuff like that. Okay. So the question was, great, does that transfer over to custom GPTs? In my testing yesterday, here's what I did. I used one of my custom GPTs, but I used the raw prompt of it. It's a popular one called Help Me Book a Meeting With. And I literally ran that raw prompt in the new ChatGPT with the search functionality. And then I ran it in the custom GPT as it has been. And then I compared those two results next to each other. I will tell you from like 5 searches yesterday, so not a huge data set of knowledge here, that I did not see any improvement in the search results or overall improvement of the answers for these custom GPTs. In this particular case, they're creating email templates with knowledge about pain points and value props and things like that in the sales world for prospecting. And so I didn't personally see any different. Even when I ran it as a raw prompt, my hypothesis was that will actually be better. If I take it out of the custom GPT world and run it as a raw prompt with this new search embedded in there, I actually should get better results, because the prompting should always be looking to see when it's best to use it. The answers look different, but if you really drill down to the end and you just go like eyesight test of like, is this result fundamentally different or better than this result? I didn't see it. So I just want to put that out there because that's important. And I'm a little bummed because I think custom GPTs, because of the way they're built, often miss out on some of these new tweaks and advancements and features. They do not carry through to custom GPTs, which is a real bummer, because this would have been an easy win for all custom GPTs to go like through the roof if they were using the advanced search functionality, which all of mine do. They all are on recent.
And I'll just mention that like the new Search GPT edition has its own multi-stage pipeline calling on different component models within OpenAI's overall architecture. And so does custom GPTs have its own pipeline. So now moving the capabilities that Search GPT has with its special pipeline into custom GPT is another engineering project. It'll probably follow. Ultimately, you'll be able to have those in there, but right at the moment, it's running on its own system.
Yeah, no, good call out. I hope it does get better. Okay, I saw our private chat kind of go nuts here. It looks like we have maybe a couple more things that people wanted to bring up. So what else over the last 2 weeks? Like I said, we talked about everything from AGI to AI agents, and we talked about a whole lot in the last 2 weeks.
So I have an agent story. That's what I want to talk about. On Tuesday, October 22nd, so a week ago past Tuesday, so 2 weeks ago, I don't know, count yourself. On Tuesday, October 22nd, we talked about agnostic agents versus platform-specific agents. What's the path forward? And this is just a tiny little flame war. Benioff and Microsoft, Benioff of Salesforce and Microsoft are like doing a little shade. Benioff thinks that Benioff compared Microsoft's Copilot being rebranded as an agent to Clippy, the infamous, very annoying thing. So I think that's relevant in the context of I'm a Salesforce girl. I'm like, yay, Salesforce, I guess. But also, I think when you can't do something, you start talking trash, right? So I think that is an important thing to be aware of. And in that show, Karl was like, why would I do one of the branded things when I can get more done with one of the unbranded things? And I feel like this is just a little like button on that story. Karl?
Okay, Karl.
Yeah. So I don't know what it is, but the term, I just hate how everyone's using the term agents to the point where anything is an agent. It's like, oh, listen to our agent. Like, and I think that maybe it's the term, because I remember Sam was asked that at the London Dev Day. He even says, I hate the term agentic. And someone said, hey, could you rebrand it right now? And he's like, I have to think about it. So I was like, oh, come on, rebrand it. Yeah, we got to change the name of that, because everybody will be calling their product an agent because everyone's trying to jump it. But I was like, I can't wait to a true agent that actually said, like what Sam actually says in his quote was that everybody thinks of this as, hey, go book me a restaurant, go book me a reservation in a restaurant. But he says, hey, instead of that, think about how potentially this could be a really smart coworker that you could ask it something, and then 2 weeks later comes back, or a week later it comes back with everything that you asked it to do, and it went autonomously by itself. That if that's his vision, then it's something different than some glorified automation that I can do in the Salesforce platform.
And I think he made an interesting point in that clip you're talking about, Karl, which was that, okay, the reservation thing is great, but what if instead what it really does is it does something humans truly can't do just by virtue of time and investment of time to do it, right? It just would not make sense, which is, what if when you go to say, make me a reservation based on these 3 or 4 variables or parameters, it doesn't just go to one restaurant that it knows it does it. It goes to 300 restaurants. And you think, well, how does that work? That would take forever. Not if the 300 restaurants are agents and the agent is talking to the agents, and it comes back to you and says, Karl, I've set this up with, here are your top 3 choices. They all have times for you and your family of 4 or whatever the case is. And these are the reasons or whatever. I've looked at 300 options in a 20-mile radius of you. These are the top 3. Pick which one you want us to schedule, and it'll be done for you, whatever. He's right. That is a drastic difference than what our brains typically do of this one-off process type thing. And what he's talking about is automation of agents, plural. Agents automating with other agents, and that multiplies very, very quickly because it becomes a one-to-many type thing. So if there's agents everywhere and agents can talk to agents everywhere, then yes, he's right. You've moved way past what is capable by a human because of time and constraints and things like that. It's something we would never think to do. I think that's a great insight, honestly.
Yeah, because we as every single technological breakthrough, we still look at it through the lens of the previous technology or how we've done it through. So we can't really comprehend what the new thing can do until we actually use it. But if what you just said, Brian, comes true, then we can all see how the true disruption will happen, because agent upon agent, thousands upon thousands of agents that people have, that throws off all this individual tasks that we need to do, right? So like in Salesforce, you have thousands of agents, but you still have to set that up. I don't have to set that up anymore. It's like, hey, I just need, every quarter I need a business plan, and then it would do multiple things that I wouldn't even have thought of. So yeah, it's not go send me an email every time this thing is triggered and update my Salesforce. No, we're not talking about that. We're talking about like something more comprehensive.
That's right. A human thing.
Yes,
right.
These aren't human answers. Yeah.
And like the button to what Karl just said is not only do you have to set it up now, but you have to delete it again. And then when the agents are spun up by themselves, I am assuming, are likely self-cleaning. And
yes,
Gwen and I are having a conversation in the chat about Agentforce and Salesforce. God knows Salesforce is not self-cleaning, right? Like none of the functions that they put in have that, and that would be an amazing ad. And again, the what we came to in that show was the Agnostic Agent show is what's happening now is almost laughable in terms of this isn't an agent, But if that's all you're paying attention to, you're missing the undercurrent of that story,
100%.
which is around the corner is actual agent that's going to
Yes.
change everything and be much easier to use and therefore much more dangerous, unexpected consequences kind of stuff.
Think of the common visual just in your head of a neural network, right? Nodes and lines attached to nodes. Now, for every one of those nodes, replace it with an agent. Now, for every one of those agent nodes, replace it with a galaxy of agents at every node. That's what we're talking about. A neural network with galaxies of agents that can talk to, spin up, run through processes billions of times over in different ways of looking at it from 30,000 different views. And to your point, Beth, when it's all done, it cleans up and goes away. And you have something that is fundamentally different than the way humans, because we can't help that we will only think through what a human could possibly replicate. And what we're moving towards with agentic workflows, true agentic workflows, are things that humans cannot do.
Right. So that the scaling that you just described makes it kind of cute to suggest that you're going to give an agent in the workplace a week to do its work. No, you're going to give it the job and it's going to say done.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And if it did take a week, how big of a process was that? Like, holy moly, what did it just solve?
But that's just one task. Imagine it's hundreds of tasks, not just one person. So that's why we say 1 billion, one person company. That is
and the reality, though, is that if it's working in the context of a human organization, the critical path is going to be blocked by a lot of interactions with humans. It is going to take a week, but not because the agents couldn't have done it if they had access themselves to do it. I have a couple of quickies here before we wrap up.
Yeah, please.
One is that Google added AI features to Waze and Google Maps. And so I'm imagining, I haven't tried this yet because I haven't been driving, but I'm imagining now that when you're on a trip and you can ask Waze or Google Maps, look, find us a restaurant that's within a mile of the route, somewhere between 20 and 30 minutes from now. That's very hard to do on the map, looking ahead, scrolling, while you're trying to drive. Can't happen. Now you have an AI agent inside Waze and Google Maps. That's going to be great. The next thing is that there are very, very large private equity firms, KKR and Energy Capital Partners, that have announced a $50 billion strategic partnership that's going to invest specifically in data centers and energy infrastructure for AI. So all the money that's going to the chips and to data center building, well, there's more of that money going now too. And why? Because this is a major transformation in the industrial complex out there. And these data centers are at the heartbeat of it. This is where all of this rapid inference is going to happen for all of these services that are interconnected with the web. Okay, now, the last thing is that we've been talking periodically about the advancements and the acceleration in chips, and photonic chips are potentially much, much faster and higher speeds and much lower energy consumption compared to electronic systems. But photonic systems have a problem in steering the photons through more than a single path. So a breakthrough by researchers at Huazhong University of Science and Technology and the Wuhan, you remember that place, National Laboratory for Optoelectronics, has pushed the boundaries of optical computing by creating an optical programmable array, PLA, that can handle more complex computations. And it does that by using parallel spectrum modulation. I've thought through what that means. I'm not going to try to explain it now, but it's a very interesting idea to solve the problem of, hey, every photon's the same. But now spectrum modulation allows you to have multiple paths through the PLA. And that's what's advancing this thing. And this is going to significantly increase the capability of chips whenever, if ever, it takes the place of electronic chips.
That's very cool. Okay, so we got to wrap this up. By the way, Jude is saying in the comments to try the 70s DJ avatar in Waze, and I told him that's definitely happening today. Quinn was like 70s DJ and laughing about it. So Gwen was also talking in the chat as well about Salesforce, and I think Beth, we've talked about this too. It is probably time to do a really good what is Salesforce doing in the world of AI show, and just keep it right there, because with your obviously expertise in Salesforce, plus what we've seen with changes from Einstein to Agentforce, all these things, I think it would be really valuable to kind of talk about what they're doing, and maybe a different show, but also about what HubSpot's doing with Breeze, because same but different, right? And it's actually very cool what they're doing. Goes back to that AI agent, a platform specific versus out to external, right? So, okay, we'll wrap it up there. Hey, thanks everybody. Don't forget, we put out a newsletter every single Sunday. And so you can click on this QR code right now. It'll take you to the dailyaishow.com where you can sign up for the newsletter. It is free. And it, like I said, it goes out every Sunday. This is like episode or issue number 22, something in that range. So we've been doing it for a while now. And we try our best to put a lot of good additional content above and beyond what you're seeing in this show live. So go check that out if you like. That list is growing all the time. And so we would love to have you on there and be able to talk to you on your Sunday mornings. Otherwise, we have a whole bunch of shows coming up. It's just November 1st, so we have a full month of shows coming up. We typically don't take holidays off, so we will have like 20 plus more shows this month as well. We really look forward to talking to you guys. It is shaping up to be an exciting end of the year in the AI space. So make sure you keep coming back and hanging out with us because we'll be covering all of it and talking about why we think it matters. So until then, guys, have a great weekend. Hope everybody had a great, safe Halloween. See ya.
Aloha.